Welcome back to the Dream World Podcast, your favorite interdimensional podcast that bridges dreams, science, and spirituality. If you're new to lucid dreaming and you want to learn how to get into it, you should really check out our online course, linked in the description, because 100% of our students have increased their frequency of lucid dreams. We also have a Discord and a bunch of other ways to get involved in the community. One of my favorite things about this podcast is talking to researchers whose publications and studies I've been reading about for years, and now I get to pick their brains about the things they've been studying. Today's guest is Dr. Stumbrys, who is a lecturer and researcher in the field of dreams, consciousness, mindfulness, and transpersonal psychology. He has a particular interest in lucid dreaming. He has a PhD in sports science, in which he conducted doctoral research on the application of lucid dreaming in sports. In this episode, we talk about some of his interests within the research and experiences with lucid dreaming. So please welcome my wonderful guest, Dr. Stumbrys.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm very pleased to be here to share a bit about myself and maybe about my research. Well, I had that interest in dreams and consciousness and the unconscious mind for quite a while, but I'm not a natural lucid dreamer. So I had maybe some flashes of lucidity during my adolescence, when like you're having a nightmare and there is that thought, oh, I need to wake up from that. But that was not a full-blown lucidity. And I got into lucid dreaming when I started my master's in consciousness and transpersonal psychology. And it was back in 2008, so before movies, Inception, and so on. So there was not that much information about lucid dreaming. And at the time, I was looking for some topic to do research, and I was looking into various topics, and I somehow came across lucid dreaming. I never heard about it before, and I got really fascinated. Wow, is it possible to become aware in the dream? And I decided to give a try. And quite interestingly, maybe that was beginner's luck or so. On my very first time that I tried, and I used a while technique when you are transitioning without losing your conscious awareness in between. So right from the beginning, I was lucid. And one of the things what I just tried to do in that my first lucid dream was just to play with my senses. So I touched things, like there was a table and I touched it and it looked like an ordinary wooden table. So then I shouted, I heard my voice, and then I also tasted some food. I found some dried fruit and it tasted just like the real thing. So I was really blown away by that, because generally before you have a lucid dream experience, it may look like our dreams are not as real as our waking reality. But then you're realizing that it's just as real, and gives you some insights about your waking perception, your waking reality, and so on. So once I woke up from that, my very first lucid dream, I was very clear that that's something that I want to do research on. So I did my master's research on lucid dreaming and creativity. Then I wanted to extend that, so I looked where I could do PhD research on lucid dreaming, and then I found a place in Heidelberg in Germany, and my supervisor was a sports scientist, so I also had to accommodate that. So my PhD was about applications of lucid dreams in sports. And we also looked into various ways how we can facilitate lucid dreaming and efficacy of different techniques and so on. I've been in that lucid dream research field for the last 15 years. One of my major areas of interest, perhaps, is that more applied side. So what are the potentials of lucid dreaming and how can we use that for our development, our growth, self-transcendence, and all other things?
Yeah, that's wonderful. I love how you had that moment of becoming lucid and realizing like how amazing and how much potential there is there. So in your applications of lucid dreaming in sports, how is this mental practice inside of a lucid dream cause more effective performance in waking life? What's happening in our brains that allows us to use our lucid dreams to practice skills and such?
So our brains and our entire physiology are processing actions when we dream in a very similar way as we actually will physically do the action. So the same motor areas of the brain are activated, and then there are also reflecting changes, for instance, in our breathing, in our heart rhythm, and so on. So in essence, it's a very physiological state, whether you're doing something in a lucid dream or whether you're doing like an actual physical practice. one of the ways which perhaps can explain why that practice in lucid dreams can be efficient. And then obviously it can give you much more flexibility. So you can slow down time, or so you can do various variations. You can look into yourself like from third person's perspective and so on. So you can do a variety of different things. And so it's a really creative place for explorations and trying things slightly different way.
What type of athletes have you found through your studies that have benefited through using lucid dreams to practice?
Well, we did like one large survey where we looked into athletes from various sports, and we asked whether they have lucid dreams, whether they're practicing their sports in lucid dreams. And one of the findings was that it's not very popular. Why you have like rates of lucid dreaming in professional athletes just about the same as in general population, but only a few % of them try to practice their sports in lucid dreams. But the vast majority of those who practice, they do feel that their performance improves because of their practice in lucid dreams.
It makes sense to me. The more we do something like a hobby or a sport, if we're dedicated to it, chances are we're going to dream about it. So if you become lucid, we can really use that for practice, because there's some visualization research on how visualizing things can help you practice. And in my opinion, lucid dreaming is like visualizing times 10, because you're feeling it as well and experiencing it.
It really gives you like that virtual reality, right? Where you fully embodied in that virtual reality with all your dream body. And it feels, as I said, well, just as the real thing.
It's actually even better because when you're lucid, I can't hurt myself, so I can do this hard stunt or this trick or whatever. And even if I fall, I'm not actually going to have the consequences of falling and messing up in waking life. What other questions have you explored in your research that fascinate you?
Quite a lot. Another area that always fascinated me, that creative side of lucid dreaming. And we also had some various research. One fascinating topic for me was always those dream characters, those other people in our dreams. And in lucid dreams, you can go and talk with them. And obviously, you can notice that there are like different types of those dream characters, and some looking a bit like they're like just a part of dream scenery. Sometimes I'm calling them like zombies, right? But then there are some dream figures that are really knowledgeable. And then as my first study on creativity was that we asked lucid dreamers to ask those knowledgeable looking dream figures, those dream guides, for some insight answers to either logical puzzles or to more creative tasks. And it seems that those dream figures, they can really give you very creative answer, but they struggle a little bit with logics. And then we also did another study where we asked those dream figures in lucid dreams just to do math, and their performance was so-so. It was like, primary school children, so they were quite struggling with arithmetics. But on another hand, what's also interesting, looking for instance, into that research with lucid dreamers, we asked dream figures to guess like a number that dreamer thinks about. And usually we use like fingers, and dreamer hides the fingers behind the back and then asking dream character to guess. And then we also try to reverse that situation where dream character thinks about a certain number and then dreamer tries to guess that number. And what that research shows that there is quite a strong overlap between, let's say, a mind of dream ego, that's your dream character, right, in a lucid dream, and other dream characters. So let's say where the chance rate to guess a number was about 10%, so they guessed at a 60-70% success rate. So it was much higher than chance, and it worked in both directions. And then there was another interesting study where other researchers looked into tickling, because, if you're trying to tickle yourself, it doesn't really tickle, but if someone else tickles you, it tickles more. So they also tried to do that in the lucid dream. So just asking lucid dreamer to tickle themselves and then asking another dream character to tickle. And while that difference between self-tickling and tickling of other was present in waking state, it was not present in a lucid dream. So that distinction between yourself and the other dream character is not that clear, even if it looks like those dream characters have their own personality and then they can act in some unpredictable ways. And I tend to think those other dream characters, they are like parts of yourself. What's also interesting, for instance, in one of the studies we looked into not those friendly dream characters that tickle you, but to threatening dream characters towards the dreamer. And then we looked what are the strategies, how lucid dreamers deal with those threatening dream characters, because it seems that some are just running away, flying away, or so just trying to escape that unpleasant situation situation, while others are more engaging in a more constructive behavior. So they will face that threatening dream character, try to resolve the issue, will talk with them. If you try something, then you can see that in many cases that dream character will no longer be threatening, but maybe they just want something to share. And what was interesting in that study, that an interesting pattern emerged, that those lucid dreamers who are more proficient ones, they tend to approach those dream characters with a more constructive way. So they will engage into dialogue and try to solve that situation. And they will have much lower proportion of those threatening dream characters in their dreams. On the other hand, those people who have more frequent nightmares, they are usually trying to escape from those situations. And then they also have more those threatening dream characters in their dreams. So one of our hypotheses is that perhaps those threatening dream characters, they are perhaps some representations of your inner parts and of your inner conflicts. And if you are trying to escape them, right, then these situations try to repeat and those dreams may become a bit more nightmarish. On the other hand, if you're trying to engage with them and try to understand, okay, so maybe there is a particular message that they want to say to you. So in these cases, then you can resolve that inner conflict within the lucid dream space, even without bringing it into your conscious awareness. What exactly was that part? What is that, my inner conflict? But maybe I can just hug them, right, and make peace with that part of myself. So that's another, at least very interesting topic for myself, those dream figures and lucid dreams.
I also love interacting with dream characters and dream figures and asking them questions and things like that. It's so fascinating to me. And I've noticed that some dream characters are clearly parts of me, and some of them feel like they're just their own separate entity aside from me, and they're so intelligent. So it's an interesting area of study. How easy or difficult is it to find lucid dreamers that are capable of doing these tasks and math problems and answering these questions successfully from within the dream?
It is challenging. Obviously, it depends what type of research are you doing. If you're doing research in a sleep laboratory, when you want to bring someone, so then they, for instance, can confirm that they're lucid with eye movements, then it's always tricky. Because if you look into a general population, those people who have lucid dreams multiple times per week, there are just about 1% of them. So how to get them, and even if you will get them into a sleep laboratory, then there is also maybe not that high success rate that they will have a lucid dream and then they will do what they are asked to do. So it is difficult. It's a bit easier with more those field online studies where just you are asking people to do a particular type of task just at their home in their usual environment, and then obviously you are not that geographically constricted, right? Because it might be like a global study, and that's one of the ways how we're doing this research. Just we have an access to a larger proportion of lucid dreamers across the world.
Yeah, the online stuff is great. I participated in the ones you sent me, and it's been super interesting. I love seeing more people take interest in this research. I have quite a few lucid dreams per week, so I realize that that's more frequent than most people. And, I've been lucid dreaming my whole life, and I dedicate my life to it. So obviously my frequency has increased over the years. How many research labs across the world in general, are actually focusing on lucid dreaming?
There are not that many labs, and especially if we're talking about that more sleep laboratory research. There is one quite active lab in the US, Northwestern University, by Ken Tyler and his colleagues. Benjamin Baird, another lucid dream researcher in the US, I think he's right now at the University of Texas. These two are on that side of the Atlantic, and then there are a few laboratories in Europe. So Martin Dressler is also quite active in the Netherlands and Radboud University. My old good supervisors, Daniel Erlicher in Switzerland, Michael Schedel in Germany, but there are just basically only a few places, which is a bit sad because generally dream research in itself it's not that popular field. It's somewhere kind of a bit in the outskirts. But the lucid dream research it's even within the outskirts of dream research. But I think nowadays there is that increase of interest because it's becoming a bit more cultural thing. Well, like meditation and mindfulness becoming completely mainstream, which wasn't the case, for instance, let's see, 20 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. Hopefully, lucid dreaming will pick up. I mean, one of the issues of progression of scientific research and that popular availability is that we don't really have efficient techniques for facilitating lucid dreams, because majority of people, what our research shows, who have lucid dreams, they're those like you, they're natural lucid dreamers who've been lucid dreaming since their adolescence or early age, and they may have lucid dreams like on a weekly, on a monthly basis. But those people like me, right, who are not natural lucid dreamers, they do need to have some efficient techniques, and right now, like the best ones, at least in a sleep laboratory, we can achieve about 50% of success rate, but it's a bit lower if you are practicing those techniques in your home environment. So that's another challenge for the entire lucid dream research.
I'm sure it will grow, like you said. So it's just a matter of time, I think, before like researchers and the academic field starts to take this on as something interesting, because as we want to know more about consciousness, I think dreams is going to be right there waiting for everybody to research on it. So what do you hope to see in terms of the future of what needs to be done in terms of research in general? What type of technology, what type of studies do you hope to see?
Oh, that's a big question. I think, there are perhaps several directions that are important. So one, as I mentioned, that the entire field of lucid dream induction and development of more efficient ways, how we can have lucid dreams, and perhaps the future may lie in a combination of different methods. So maybe taking some supplements like galantamine, and then using some cognitive techniques, maybe some stimulation and so on, and maybe combining those different approaches may yield the best success rate. And I think it's something that research needs to go into that direction. So we do have those tools. Another thing is that if you look, for instance, into studies that we have on brain imaging during lucid dreaming, there are only just a handful of studies with very small sample sizes, just 1-2 participants or so. So we don't fully know what's really happening in our brain when we are becoming lucid and so on. And that's something that also needs some attention. But it's challenging because during, for example, my PhD time, we did have an access to fMRI, and I don't know, I spent maybe about 10 nights there trying to capture a lucid dream. And then we had very frequent lucid dreamers who came to our lab. There was some who were having lucid dreams every night, but there were a lot of technological challenges, and we just were not able to capture a lucid dream like an fMRI scanner. So it's challenging, but that might be another fruitful area, just to more understand what's happening in the brain. Another direction which quite resonates for me on that application side is how can we employ those benefits and those potentials? And obviously sports is one field, creativity is another field of research, but there are some other ones that, for example, quite interested in looking into lucid dreaming as a part of spiritual practice. Or also right now, for instance, we are doing a study looking into meditation in lucid dreams, because from my personal experience, I felt quite a difference if I'm meditating in a lucid dream, because, my mind is quite clear and I don't have that intense thought activity as I would have if I meditate in my waking state. And there are many other potentials that lucid dreaming can open up. And so I think that's another fruitful inquiry. And the other one, maybe that's a bigger one. It's that exploration of that state itself, and just trying to go deep. And quite many years ago, Charles Darwin proposed an idea about state-specific sciences. And the idea is along the lines that right now we have that waking science, right, from our waking state, which explains how our world works to the bigger or less extent. And his idea was perhaps that can be extended to other states of consciousness. And I would be very curious to build and to see that development of that state-specific science of lucid dreaming. So then we can more investigate that state from the inside. And then, let's say, other peoples can try to validate these results and those insights, and then just to more understand what that it is about. This idea, for instance, it also relates to that distinction between that monophasic understanding of reality and polyphasic that Charles Laffin, an anthropologist, talked about. So our Western society is primarily monophasic. So our just waking experience are considered real, and all the dreams and all other altered states of consciousness, they're just some illusions, right? If you look more closely into different cultures, there is that more polyphasic understanding of reality. So there is one waking reality that we're perceiving from the waking state, and then there is another, our mode of being, for instance, that we have in our dreams. And with lucid dreaming, you can more explore and try to understand that mode of being and that other type of reality.
Yeah, there's a big paradigm shift that's due in the world of science to start to look at these things from different perspectives. And I mean, we spend a third of our lives asleep, and my dreaming life is just as real and vivid and important to me as my waking life. So I'm excited to see people, start to treat that differently and, adjust their methods in order to be able to understand that. I think that's important, and I think it's going to happen. So that's very exciting. I've read a lot of studies about the prefrontal cortex and how it plays a big role in lucid dreaming. Can you tell me a little bit about that and what role have we found that it has?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Because, for instance, if we look into our brain activity in waking state comparing to our sleep, it functions slightly different. For instance, when we're transitioning into NREM sleep, our brain becomes less active in general and a bit slower in processing all the information. But once we're transitioning into REM sleep, in which we vividly dream and in which lucid dreaming primarily occurs, there is a shift in pattern of brain activity. So there are some brain areas that are becoming very active, like amygdala, which is related to emotions, and then therefore in our dreams our emotions are quite strong. But on another hand, there are some brain areas that are more deactivated during REM sleep. And one of those areas is our prefrontal cortex. And that's the part of the brain which is involved in executive functioning. So when we're making various decisions, for instance, so when we're trying to control our thought, control our behavior and our short-time memory and so on. So it's quite crucial, and it's one of those parts of the brain that's constantly active when we are waking. And that particular area is deactivated during REM sleep. So therefore, usually we don't understand that we are dreaming, right? Because we don't have that insight. We don't have that connection of our episodic memory, right? That we just went to bed, right? And the other moment you're somewhere on the seaside. So that deactivation, it preserves in a way our dreaming. But when we are becoming lucid in a dream, what research shows is that this particular area of the brain, we are turning on those metacognitive mechanisms. And in one of our studies, what we try to do in the sleep laboratory, we try to stimulate with a weak electric current stimulation those prefrontal brain areas during REM sleep. And then we would awaken people, ask for their dream reports and see whether there is an increase in lucidity. And there were some small effects showing that these brain regions, they do participate in lucid dreaming. But as I said, those other studies that we have on brain imaging and so on, they really have very small participant samples. And it may be that it's not just that prefrontal cortex, but some other brain areas are also crucial for lucid dreaming. During that study that I just talked about, when we kind of stimulated and we asked people that if you're lucid, please give us a signal with the eyes. But in that study, there was a very strict protocol. So we had to awaken them from REM sleep. What I noticed that there were a couple of occasions when people were giving signal from non-REM sleep, like they're lucid. But the issue was that I kind of had to stick to the protocol, and I was not able to awaken them and to verify what was. So in two cases, when I awakened one person, they just didn't recall what was happening. But another person, they recalled, and they said that it was just darkness. And they then had that feeling that they're floating, and they okay, that must be a dream, and then they give a signal. So in essence, I think lucidity during NREM can be present, but it may be a bit more difficult one. Like the Tibetan tradition, you have dream yoga, which is about lucidity in REM sleep or in dream state, and there is also sleep yoga, which is about becoming lucid in non-REM sleep. And then obviously with that non-REM sleep, you have different stages of non-REM sleep. So there is that deep sleep, perhaps, in which you need to be quite proficient to become aware. Maybe it's a bit easier with those lighter sleep stages. So yeah, one interesting thing when we had those couple of occasions, and we also looked into the literature, what other researchers found on NREM lucidity. One thing what we found that those NREM lucid dreams seems to be very short, just happening for a few seconds. And one of the ideas that I have is that usually if you're doing sleep laboratory research, you're asking people to signal their lucidity with making eye movements, because there is that correspondence between our dream gaze and our physical eyes. And during REM sleep, our eyes are moving rapidly in a natural way. But during NREM sleep, it's not natural for our eyes to move because it's non-rapid eye movement sleep, right? And then not any eye movements. So perhaps when you're making those eye movements, just to confirm that you are lucid, that may just bring you from that NREM sleep into wakefulness, because it's not like naturally something that is happening during NREM sleep.
Gotcha. So when somebody's in REM and they're giving the eye signal, how can you detect it if their eyes are already moving back and forth?
Because usually we are asking them to give a very specific eye signal. So we are asking them to look as much as they can to left side, then to the right side, and to repeat that several times. And in that case, because generally, if let's say if you are in dream or in wakefulness, right, and if you want to look to the left, you will move your head to the left. And usually you don't have those like a very large amplitude eye movements. But if you ask to do those large amplitude eye movements, they are quite visible on a sleep recording. So you can see them quite clearly.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like I have had lucid dreams in non-REM sleep. So I'm ordering this headband that allows me to do it from home. It's like EEG readers that came out. I don't know if you know the Enchanted Wave headband. So I'm going to try it out and see if when I get lucid, if I'm actually, what my brain waves are looking like. So I'm just going to experiment with that and see what happens. I think, self-experimentation is a good place to start. So we'll see what comes out of it.
And it might be those more states when it's there might not be that much visual imagery. It might be because I also had experience when it's just like a blackness. And especially if you're doing more like a wild-induced lucid dreaming, because then generally you should transfer through NREM sleep to REM sleep. And then sometimes there is that feeling that it's just completely black. Once that imagery starts to appear, then perhaps you are moving more into REM sleep.
And what about your personal lucid dream experiences? How often are you lucid, and what do you like to do when you do get lucid?
I'm not that frequent lucid dreamer, unfortunately. It's because for me it really depends how much I'm engaged with various lucid dreaming techniques. And I had some periods in my life when I was very engaged, so I had quite a few lucid dreams. But right now I just have once in a while. But generally, if I don't have a particular idea what I want to do, or if I cannot recall a particular idea, because that sometimes also happens. So my favorite activity in lucid dreams is just flying, because I really appreciate that sense of freedom.
Yeah, flying is so much fun. It's just such a different feeling that you don't get to experience anywhere else other than the lucid dream. I love it. When it comes to lucid dream induction methods, I know that a lot of, people are trying to find the best one and the most, proven efficiently. Do you think that it's possible to say that like one or a group of methods is the most efficient for everybody? Or how much do you think personal practice and personal journey plays a role with it? Because I've noticed kind of different things might work for different people, right?
Yeah, indeed. And there are some people who really differ. For instance, some are light sleepers, right? And some are hard sleepers, and they need different approaches. But that's, in terms of looking into the research, that's one of the challenging questions, because we don't have that much research looking like into different characteristics and what type of people may benefit from one technique and what types might benefit from another. But as a general advice, I would suggest an aspiring lucid dreamer just just try out different techniques and just see what works for them. Generally, we do have some methods that, for instance, a combination of wake back to bed with mild, if doing that 1 hour sleep interruption seems to be one of the most efficient ways, at least we found in a sleep laboratory, with about 50% success rate. Just for a student, right, who is not selected for the lucid dream abilities. Another study was done with the same procedure in home settings, so percent, I think, dropped to 16 or 18%, so it's not that high.
Thanks for listening. I appreciate you more than you know. Thanks to everybody's support and donations. Melissa and I will be going to the IASD conference in the Netherlands. That is the International Association for the Study of Dreams. So we will be reporting live on both of our podcasts, sharing different content, information, research studies, and everything that we learn while there. We are really excited and we still need donations to make it happen. So feel free to support us. And if you can't donate, we still love you. Listening to the podcast, sharing, liking, commenting, whatever, all of that has got us this far. So thank you so much for listening. Sweet dreams. I know that my weekly posting schedule has been a bit all over the place, so I am sorry about that, but I'm doing my best. Okay, bye.